Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Heidi Stephens, you are the reigning, newly crowned Mrs. American national title holder. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Gina. This is actually my very first podcast as Mrs. American, so I'm just so excited that it can be with one of my sister queens.
Absolutely. And I know it's been a few months since your crowning. How has that been?
It's been a whirlwind. I mean, at first it felt really surreal. I don't have a better word for it, but it took me a good 6 weeks to even really let it sink in that I won Mrs. American. And I think
Right.
part of the reason is that you're at the Westgate for 10 days before your show, but then the day of the show, it goes so fast that you don't have time to think at all. So I almost felt like I was in this different headspace completely. So I kept waking up and I'd tell my husband, I'm like, can you believe this? And he's like, yes, I was there. It happened. But
It
it
happened.
took me so long to like really let it sink in. And then just setting up lots of events and fun things like this. It's been a lot of work, but really fun. And I have a lot of exciting things coming up.
Absolutely. And one of my favorite things about, and I know we'll talk a little bit later about our experience at Mrs. American, but just the fact that I have the honor to be able to sit down with women from different backgrounds who have and represent different platforms or businesses, causes, and charities. And so that was one of the reasons why I wanted to invite you here is to talk about your platform and maybe a little bit about your story, your backstory, leading into what made you want to actually compete in pageantry and the platform that you bring to the table. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, what's fun about it is it's also intertwined. I always tell women that are asking me when they're signing up to compete, I say my platform is not something I chose because it looked good on a resume and I needed a platform to talk about. My platform is just very much part of my life. And so it really stems from my decade-long career as an ER nurse. And initially, when I was in nursing school, I thought I was going to focus on pediatrics. And then my last year of nursing school, I got a call from my mother that my uncle, who was a Vietnam veteran and a distinguished history professor, he had died by suicide. And it really shook me to my core and it compelled me to want to work with veterans. I had no idea the struggles that my uncle was facing. And so I reached out to my nursing school professors and I said, I know it's too late, but is there any way I can switch from pediatrics to working with veterans? And they made the switch happen for me. And I started working at the Veterans Hospital in the emergency room. And then I just never left. It was such a calling for me to work in the ER and to specifically work with veterans. And, you know, as one can imagine, working in the emergency room, I got this front row seat into disease and devastation and just these devastating impacts that can happen when people don't prioritize their health. And so I would sit with patients, you know, a couple extra minutes at the bedside and talk with them about these really simple things they could do in their own lives to lead longer, healthier lives. And essentially, that's now what I get to do as Mrs. American, just outside of those emergency room doors. It's doing it just on a much larger scale and talking to people how they can lead healthy lives.
Absolutely. I love that so much. And I don't actually, I know that during that week that we were all together, a lot of women were able to conversate on the histories and the backstories of their platforms, but I didn't know that in-depth detail on yours. And so I know that so many families are not only affected by suicide and the mental health issues, but it's the platform that you come representing is the health of our nation in every area. You know, I know that you have a lot of information and facts that you can share about some of those areas. So what are some of those things that you can share?
Yeah, I mean the sad reality for our nation is that 40% of US deaths are from preventable diseases. You know, it's not all bad news. I feel like that word preventable is so impactful and important for people to understand that these disease processes are not only reversible, but preventable if you implement these really simple changes into your life. I'm a mother. I know you're a mother. The rates of obesity and just children being overweight It's really startling in our nation. And, it's 70, right now it's 75% of American adults are struggling with obesity or being overweight. And so I just really want to instill in people that if you want to lead a healthy life, it just doesn't happen by accident in this modern world we live in. You really have to be intentional about it. And I think if we can just make sleep, exercise, healthy nutrition, if we can see them as forms of medicine, we're all going to be a lot better off.
So what are some of the ways that you implement living a healthy lifestyle in your own life?
Yeah, well, this is like one of my favorite things to talk about because to me, this is the really fun way of how I get to share my platform in real time on social media. And so it's not just sharing facts and scare tactics, but it's showing people what health looks like in our own family lives. And my husband and I are really united on this in that we prioritize quality nutrition, even if the kids don't love it. Like my husband just the other night made the kids lentils, and it was like, you don't like them? That's too bad. But this is our family dinner and we're all eating the same thing. So prioritizing whole, nutrient dense, real foods, really trying our best to limit ultra processed and processed foods.
Right.
That's a huge priority for us. Adequate sleep. I might be boring, but there are few things that I will let my kids stay up really late to experience, even including the ball dropping on New Year's Eve. It's just, to me, sleep is so paramount. It's one of like the big pillars in leading a healthy life. And then exercise, the studies are very clear. If you can even get 20 minutes of exercise a day, about 2.5 hours a week, it reduces your chance of premature death by 28%. And it reduces your risk of heart disease by 20%. And that's our nation's largest killer. That's our world's largest killer. Just globally, next year, we're projected to lose 19 million people to heart disease alone, and cancer is a very distant second. So, if we can really see those small lifestyle choices as medicine, and if we can figure out ways to incentivize those, we're all going to lead longer, healthier lives.
I love that so much. And I love watching your social media. And that was one of the things that I was drawn to and attracted to looking more in depth into what your platform. What is your platform officially called?
Oh, yes, I didn't even say it. It's your health in your hands. I mean, it's so funny because I know all the nuts and bolts of it, but in pageantry, we really do love to come up with a catchy phrase.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And I decided to title it Your Health in Your Hands because I really want to illustrate for people that we have such control over our health and our health destiny. And I want people to feel inspired to take ownership of their health and to really be the one that's the driving force in their health and the health of their family members. Frankly, I know as parents, we set the tone for health in our family, especially as matriarchs in the family.
It's an area of our life where it's so easy to be busy and on the go and want to have fast, quick meals. And
Yeah.
when you compound that over time, if that's every night of the week, that's not about living a healthy lifestyle. What was catchy to me about watching you, what you share on your social media platform is, do you have your own garden,
Yes.
or because there's a lot of people who do had to have that ability to have their own, but
Yeah.
for those who don't, there's something that's called community gardens, and I saw that highlighted on your platform. So tell us a little bit about that type of an avenue that someone can take.
Yeah, well, I live on a really small island and there's lots of just beautiful gardens around us. We have a really large garden here at our house that my husband built me during COVID. And we've just fallen in love with the process of learning how to grow our own food. And I'm certainly not in a place where I grow all of our own food. We go to the grocery store far too often. But one of the things that we've done to give back to our community is to get involved with this Plant a Row program through our food bank. And so we plant extra fruits and vegetables within our garden that we harvest to donate to our food bank. So that people, neighbors in need can come and have access to real nutrient dense, fresh foods, as opposed to going to the food bank and getting all of these processed, ultra processed foods for their family. Just that at the end of the day are not replenishing our bodies and our cells. So I just love this emphasis on having hyper local, hyper fresh foods. And that's just been a really fun way for me to volunteer my time and my efforts in a way that's really true to me. Because I think as moms, it's hard to get out there and volunteer a lot. You know, our families are our focus. So I love that I'm able to volunteer in a way that I'm already doing it in my life, but I'm also giving back to my community in a fun way.
Absolutely. You can also supplement with vitamins and supplements, and there's amazing brands out there. I know off the top of my head, Nutrilite stands out to me, but there's many, many, many ways that people can be intentional with being better about their health and supplementing, or maybe they're not getting it from their actual food source. So obviously you have your personal platform, but your national platform is connected to Victoria's Voice Foundation, and that is an organization we're both connected with as Beauty for Good ambassadors. So tell me a little bit about what made you want to connect with Victoria's Voice.
I mean, as an ER nurse, I have given Narcan more times than I can count, probably in the hundreds of times in working in the emergency department. You know, it was not, especially when I was working at a civilian hospital and not directly with our veteran population. It was not uncommon for somebody to just be rolled into the emergency department and dropped off by a friend in the ambulance bay, completely unconscious and unable to breathe for themselves because they're having an opioid overdose. And I'll actually never forget this one woman who she just shook me to my core because she was about my age and she was just rolled out of a car and the car took off and left her in the emergency department, and we brought her back to her room and someone was squeezing the bag so she could have respiration, she could have oxygen rich blood flowing through her body. I put an IV in her arm and I give her Narcan and she just immediately wakes up. And I sat with her for a while after she came to, and I remember telling her, I am scared for you. I'm scared for you and you've got to figure this out. And I don't know whatever happened to that young woman. I would like to think that she got clean. Um, but who knows? That's one of the sad parts about working in an emergency room is you often don't know the stories of the patients that you care for on the worst days of their life. You don't know what
Right.
happens to them afterward. But that's one of the things that I love about Victoria's Voice is trying to get access to these kids before they get there. I love the preventative side of Victoria's Voice, and that's really what I want to highlight with my personal platform as well, is just the preventative side of getting to people, especially children, before they get diabetes, before they have high cholesterol, before they have debilitating heart disease. So I really appreciate that preventative aspect of Victoria's Voice.
Absolutely. Victoria's Voice is incredible. And I had never heard of Victoria's Voice until I competed for pageantry. And everybody said, if you're going to compete for pageantry, this is an amazing organization to connect with. And it wasn't until I actually heard the story and the backstory on their family and Victoria, the drug epidemic that has become an increasingly significant issue across our country, affecting so many families, and too many people are losing their lives to this particular problem. And my battle cry as Mrs. Nevada, and I think a lot of us who are connected as ambassadors, for myself, it's that every home and vehicle first aid kit contain naloxone, because when you have access to that, the power to save someone's life is in your hands when you're prepared. And
Yes.
you don't know, you don't have to be worried about there being somebody who is addicted to drugs in your family or in your household. People can encounter this stuff in many different ways and different forms. And so just to have access to it, I think is a really good way to start, just by being prepared. And I love this organization. I think like you're right on so many levels. It does have that element of preventative care as well, with vital signs and all of that. So I love that it goes hand in hand with your platform, because that's just one area of health that it touches amongst all the other areas as well. So love that.
I think it's so important to say to your audience, just because I say this to people in my everyday life regarding Narcan, naloxone. There is no harm if you administer it. If you keep it in your purse, you keep it in your glove box, and you come across someone who's unconscious, there's no harm in giving it, right? If that's not what's going on here, you didn't further hurt the person.
Right.
Um, you can only do good. It's similar to CPR in a way that any harm that you may cause by performing CPR is far outweighed by the benefits of attempting to save a person's life and just acting in good faith to save someone's life. So I just think that's such an important point for people to really understand.
When it comes to just kind of recapping on Mrs. American, I know you in the beginning you briefly touched on just the whirlwind that it was, the 10 days. What was your favorite part about the entire 10 days that we were there? There's so much, right?
There's so much. Isn't it? 10 days away is quite a bit. And I think because I'm a nurse and going back to the Victoria's Voice conversation, the dignitary dinner just spoke to my heart. And I think it's easy for people outside looking in to assume that women are involved in pageantry because of the glittering gowns and the eyelashes and the hair and the sparkly crown. And that dinner just it instilled in me the importance of community and of platform and just this larger platform that reaches all states. And all of these women have different stories, and they're all here to talk about something that is of great importance to them. To me, that transcended all the glitz and the glam, and I really just felt like this is a good place for me. Like, I feel at home here. There was something really powerful about seeing all the former title holders, national title holders, world, like international Mrs. World title holders. That was hands down my favorite. I'm curious, what was your favorite?
All of the women, I have to tell you, just connecting with all the women because I wasn't anticipating that. And I know that there's a stigma around pageantry and how there can be cattiness and it's a competition, but it's so funny to me from the very beginning, even at state, for me, it's always been, well, the results are out of your hands. All you can do is just give it the best you've got. But judges are the ones that decide that based off of this certain criteria. So that leaves us all open to be able to build relationships with each other. And um, every single person in my state pageant, and then also within Mrs. American, I love you all. Like, and we even talk about it too, because we're all of us women are still connected. We took a separate um, uh, WhatsApp chat and we transferred it from the official one. So now we're still connecting every single day. And some of us can be more active than others because everybody's, obviously gone back to their lives. We're all married or have our children and our businesses. Um, but I have to tell you, it was my connection with them to the point where when it was over, I had a little bit of a hard time because I live in Vegas. You all were here, and then you all left. And I was like,
You.
oh my gosh, I just fell in love with all of these beautiful people. And I would have loved nothing more than to keep you all here.
I
Uh,
know.
but
Let's
it's
have
okay.
a
It's
oh,
okay because we're still connected. We're still connected.
let's do a Mrs. World reunion though in
That's
Vegas.
that's what that is the thing that gets me through it is the fact that I know it seems to be a tradition that a lot of after people compete in their pageant, they do tend to reunite and have reunions when the next pageants come up and support the next incoming class or their state title holder that's coming up. So I do look forward to that. My other favorite part, it was dressing up and all that type of stuff. But you hit the nail on the head is that each woman comes representing a platform, something, a significant issue. And I don't think a lot of people really understand just how accomplished all
Yeah.
of these women are. It blew me away how much the power of getting rubbed off on. Iron sharpens iron, being around women of significance. And I guess I don't know why I wasn't expecting that element to it. I wasn't thinking about that, but once I realized that I was surrounded by just phenomenal people, I really did just love everything that we were encompassed in and everything that this organization is about. It's so much more than just being a pretty face.
It's so, so true. And, we didn't have a chance to connect much week of because this is also one of those odd insider info tips here, but everyone's in alphabetical order the entirety of the week. So you rehearse in alphabetical order, sitting A to Z. Well, there's no Z, but A to Wyoming, Alabama to Wyoming. We line up in alphabetical order to go to the Elvis suite to walk into dinner. You are always in alphabetical order. So I didn't even get a chance to connect with you until top 16.
Yeah.
Truly, until because we were announced just one after another. So you were just ahead of me in the top 16 lineup. And that was maybe only an hour and a half or so of a show where we were side by side and got to connect. And I immediately felt a connection with you. You just had this presence about you. And I just was thinking on that last night and thinking how powerful that is, that we only got a chance to connect backstage right before walking on, and I still felt such a connection to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that was one of the beautiful things about it is either you really had that chance to connect with your line buddies,
Yeah.
but overall the spirit and the attitude of every woman there was that we were all there to obviously have our own experience,
Yes.
to try the best that we could, but we all were very positive, encouraging, and uplifting of one another. So it really didn't matter if there some people connected more than others. We
Yes.
were pumped and excited for whoever it was that was going to win that. And so I feel like we're all in unison in that mindset of, okay, how can we help Heidi with now her role in being able to serve as the best Mrs. American she can be in whatever ways that we can. And so this is just one way that I felt like I could do that and implement it with you. And I'm just so honored that you would take the time to contribute to this platform to share your message. So thank you so much, Heidi.
Oh, I'm honored. I'm completely honored. And what you said is exactly right. I have had so many people from our class reach out and ask how they can help. And that humbles me truly because, it is a competition, but again, it just, the sisterhood transcended that competitive aspect. And I have felt that love. So I appreciate you. I'm honored to be here. And this is so fun. I'm doing a podcast as Mrs. American.
It's fun. It's just chatting with a girlfriend and filming it. Okay, so next you are competing in Mrs. World. So tell us a little bit about Mrs. World, what you're doing to prepare for that, what you're most looking forward to.
Yes. I think the biggest thing for me is I really have to get over the hurdle of wardrobe. I am not a fashion forward person. I live on a very casual island. We are like a Birkenstocks crowd. So the wardrobe part is really challenging for me. And so usually if I can get that kind of ironed out early on, my prep goes very smoothly moving forward. So I'm mostly focusing on preparing for Mrs. World by just trying my best to be a great Mrs. American. I have an upcoming speech at Microsoft next week. I have a lot of events coming up, galas, opportunities to speak about my platform, to speak about the organization. To me, that's the best prep because that's real life. People come up to you and they say, "Oh, you're Mrs. American. Why did you want to be Mrs. American?" It's those real life conversations. That's what you get in the judges' room, or that's what I had as in my Mrs. American interview. Why do you want to be Mrs. American? Tell me about your platform. So just those real life opportunities to work with people face to face, and then certainly on social media and doing fun media outlets like this will just help me to have an even larger reach. But yes, the Mrs. World pageant is at the legendary Westgate again, January 31st. We're still waiting on a prelim date, but January 31st will be the finals date. So I'm ready to go. I'm excited about it to just have the opportunity to be there again and hopefully to have a reunion.
Oh, we're having a reunion. I'll be there for sure.
Okay.
Here. There's no reason why I can't be here. But well, I am so excited for you. I know all of us sisters in the sisterhood are excited for you. And you have done a phenomenal job so far. We're only excited for you for the rest of your year, how you're going to serve, whether that's continuing on as Mrs. American or if you get to continue on as the next Mrs. World. So we are rooting for you. We love you. And again, anything that we can do to help you, you just call us. We're here for you.
You guys are the best. Thank you again for having me on, Gina.
You're welcome. Love you, Heidi.
Love you.